It looks like Jacinda figured out way before Michael did that their relationship was on borrowed time. It was just hanging there with some quiet longing, but it was bound to fall apart. And neither of them was strong enough to fix it. At first, it was a gentle, almost shy romance that grew slowly. But then things got really dark. It became a messy emotional fight because of Michael's problems with the law, Willow's sneaky ways, and Jacinda's increasing worry that she was somehow going to ruin the man she was trying so hard to love. Watching him crumble under all those accusations and the pressure, she started to think, I'm not helping him at all. I'm actually making things worse. Then that idea, which she really didn't want to think about, just started taking over everything in her head. Jacinda found herself in a war she hadn't signed up for, one that Michael and Willow were fighting long before she ever showed up. She really messed up by not realizing just how messed up their past was. It was so easy for Willow to mess with Michael's life again with one move, and his ability to think straight just went out the window the second his freedom was on the line. Jacinda just stood there on the edge of all the chaos. She watched Willow place the evidence, saw Michael stumble right into the trap without a clue, and then saw Chase make things so tight around himself it was hard to imagine him even breathing. Jacinda realized she was Michael's biggest vulnerability, the one thing he couldn't keep safe without putting himself at risk. She really felt the switch, first in his words, then in how he acted. And then in how he'd skip over specific subjects like just saying them out loud, would smash any delicate piece they had left. Every time Michael said he was fine, Jacinda could hear the panic lurking just below what he was saying. He'd always say he'd sort things out, but she couldn't shake the feeling Willow's shadow was glued to him, just waiting to pull him back the second he slipped up. Michael tried his best to keep Jacinda safe from all the crazy stuff happening, but it just made her realize something important. She wasn't his way out of trouble. She was actually making things harder for him. That scared her so much she couldn't even put it into words. Having her around made him vulnerable, made him a bit reckless, and basically made him an easier target for Willow. Jacinda's love for him, no matter how strong, just felt like she was slowly suffocating him. She started picturing the headlines, all the court stuff, and everyone gossiping the rich guy ruined just because he got mixed up with a woman like her. She just kept thinking about being blamed, how everyone would whisper and point at her like she was the reason Michael's life fell apart. The worst part was thinking Michael might actually believe it. Her choices, her quietness, and how she kept everyone at arm's length all started because of that fear. She figured it was best to just steer clear of him, to stop making herself an easy target for anyone to use. She couldn't let just being herself give Willow more ammo in the ongoing fight, especially since Willow fought so fiercely. Willow really watched her, like she was trying to figure something out, completely aware that Jacinda was this big emotional problem for Michael right in the middle of everything. When Willow spotted a way to get ahead, she went for it without holding back. Michael's world was spinning out of control, and Jacinda began pulling away little by little. It wasn't that she wanted to go, but deep down, she felt like leaving was the only way she could really protect him. She went over the words in her mind, endlessly practicing what she'd say, that she cared for him, that she genuinely wanted him to make it through, and that it would probably cause less pain for him if she wasn't around than if he had to watch himself lose everything just because he tried to love her. But deep down she knew the real story, and it was so much worse. She was scared spitless. She was scared to death that she'd be the one to make him fall. I was really scared Willow might win. She was scared that Michael, who was already feeling really guilty and afraid, he would eventually just look at her and not see love anymore, but instead see the thing that took away his freedom. It became pretty clear to Jacinda what was coming as Michael and Willow kept fighting. Each new accusation and secret was like another explosion, and she could feel things winding down to the end. As Willow's plans got more intense and Michael's temper really flared up, especially with Chase getting closer with fake evidence, Jacinda finally had to admit what she'd been scared of all along. She and Michael just weren't made to get through a war like this. He really needed a clear head, but she just brought confusion. Not when he needed strength and she was a soft spot, a weakness he couldn't afford. Not when Willow was set on tearing him apart, and Jacinda being there just handed her another weapon. Jacinda got ready for what she thought was the only way to save him, leaving before things got really bad. She became the one to give up everything, not because he asked, but because he truly needed her to. She got herself off the battlefield so Michael could go all out without having to protect her. It broke her, hollowed her, left her breathless. But she thought she had no other choice. If she stuck around, he could lose it all. She knew if she walked away, one thing would stay true: her conviction that her love for him was deep enough to set him free before the world tore them apart. Jacinda felt the ground moving under her feet. The story she found herself in really started to get out of hand, threatening not just her shaky relationship with Michael, but his whole future too. Each choice she made, every time she moved to keep him safe, she started to change where his life was going in ways she truly hadn't expected. She got to Port Charles thinking she could totally change her life, become someone new, someone past her tricky history. But here she was stuck in a huge problem, one she didn't even start, and yet she couldn't just walk away. Michael was really feeling the heat from Chase's investigation, and it looked like he might lose everything. Chase just kept going, driven by this personal thing he had about Michael Corinthos. He really wanted to show everyone that Michael had been protected way too much, and that the police had acted like he was special, almost untouchable. He really made a scene, yelling and shoving, saying that justice was held up for ages just because Michael came from a well-off family. Chase finally had what he felt was enough proof, hinting Michael meant to shoot Drew, a man who couldn't move or protect himself. Chase had no idea that the evidence was a setup. Willow had put it there with cold precision, making sure Michael would fall right into a trap he never saw coming. If Chase went ahead and arrested Michael for murder, it would be a total disaster. Michael was not going to get special treatment this time. The Corinthos name and the lingering goodwill of Port Charles wouldn't protect him. If someone were accused of purposefully shooting a disabled person, people would absolutely see them as a monster, not just a regular citizen with rights. They probably wouldn't let him out on bail. The system would end up turning on him. He could be stuck in jail for months, maybe even more. And the truth about that planted key would just keep getting harder to find. Jacinda just got it and Michael didn't. She realized then how quickly public opinion could turn, how just a whisper of gossip, a false claim, or plain fear could utterly ruin a person. She noticed Willow had taken Michael's feelings of guilt and his past, and sort of turned them into weapons to use against him. She just knew, probably better than anyone, that if Michael got taken, the world wasn't going to jump to his defense. She just wanted to keep him safe, like with everything she had. Even if it meant getting totally tangled up in a fight she barely grasped. But even with all that, her strong desire to keep him safe was stirring up a whole new problem. And it was something she just couldn't handle. For the first time, Jacinda recognized she was now both part of the problem and part of the solution. She was the one Michael truly cared for, the person he could confide in and actually let his guard down with. But Chase saw her as his weakness, and Willow viewed her as just a pawn she could easily get rid of. As the truth got closer, Jacinda felt this pressure pile up, like something risky was bubbling right under her calm. She just knew deep down what nobody else dared to speak. Michael going to jail could break his spirit for good. She really liked him, but waiting for him might just be too hard for her. She had it pretty good in her line of work. Guys rotated in and out, interest would perk up then fade away, and she never let emotions get tangled up in the whole thing. But this time things felt different. Jacinda wasn't keeping score. She wasn't aloof. She was totally smitten. That really scared her. As things got worse, she started to realize that trying to keep Michael safe could actually set off the very thing they were all so worried about happening. Chase was getting closer. Willow wasn't saying much, but she was definitely taking charge of the story. Jacinda found herself stuck between her feelings and her fears. She stood right on the edge of a decision that could either rescue Michael or wreck everything for both of them. Things were falling apart, and Jacinda knew deep down that when Chase finally made his move, life as she knew it was over. Jacinda sensed Port Charles slipping away, that feeling of belonging just fading a little more each day. Michael's life was a mess, and it felt like she was more of a problem than a help to him now. She never meant to stay for good, never thought she'd get so mixed up with the Corinthos family's messy, risky lives. But somehow, somewhere, she started caring too much, loving with everything she had, and feeling fear that was just too real. Okay, so Michael was totally trapped. She looked all around, but there was only one way she could see to get him out. It was a crazy idea, really dangerous, and she knew it could completely destroy her life in Port Charles. Way worse than just a broken heart. Jacinda knew if things kept going this way, she'd soon have to leave the city without a fuss, fading into the background with just memories of a man she loved but couldn't keep safe. But she couldn't just walk away. A new feeling, strong and clear, settled deep inside her. If Willow was really behind Michael's troubles, Jacinda knew she couldn't stay quiet. She wouldn't just stand by and let Willow mess with the justice system, the police, and even Michael's own mind. If this was it, she wasn't going to just fade away. She'd hit, and she would hit hard. The more Jacinda watched Willow, her act of innocence, that shaky voice, and those well-timed tears, she realized Willow wasn't just desperate. She really thought things through. She was just plain nasty. She was okay with Michael getting arrested for attempted murder because it meant she'd be safe, keep her spot, and basically get her screwed up win. Jacinda realized she had underestimated her from the beginning. Cornered, Jacinda started getting ready for something much riskier than just leaving. She was going to expose Willow. Not just because they planted evidence. It wasn't just about the key that found its way into Michael's stuff. Jacinda knew this bigger thing only because she'd been around. She'd seen stuff and heard things that people in Port Charles just pretended weren't real. If she let that secret out, the whole city would just blow up. Relationships would fall apart. People's good names would be ruined. And Willow's perfect little world would go up in smoke. Jacinda really knew what she had in her hands, enough leverage to totally wreck Willow's credibility, her legal position, and that weak victim image she had. Willow thought she'd buried that information so well that neither Chase nor the PCPD would ever dig it up. But it was just the kind of thing no one should have been able to get their hands on in the first place. But Jacinda, because she was good at spotting things others didn't, knew there were problems. And just like that, those cracks became the very map Michael needed to find his way out. The very thought made her stomach drop. She knew that once she did this, there was no turning back. Willow would get her revenge. The Corinthos family could end up betraying her. Michael might have a really tough time accepting what she did, even if it was to help save him. Jacinda hit a point where she was so scared of losing him for good that the fear itself didn't even matter anymore. There was no way she could just leave without putting up a fight. She would never be able to forgive herself. If she just sat there, Michael was going to jail for something that woman made up. The one who used to say she loved him. Jacinda knew what she was doing. She wasn't shying away from the danger or the crazy decision she'd made. Instead, she was running right into the storm she was about to start. She wasn't going to attack Willow with violence. That just wasn't her way. Instead, she'd hit him with the truth. This truth was strong enough to rip apart all of Willow's secrets and show everyone in town what she'd been up to. When Jacinda finally shared her big secret, it wasn't just about keeping Michael safe. That would just blow up everything, sending shockwaves through Port Charles that no one, not Chase, not Willow, not even Michael, could easily ignore. Jacinda right there in the thick of the mess she made. It would have one absolute certainty, even if she had to walk away later. She'd know she'd done the one thing nobody else had the guts to do. She'd fought for Michael when everyone else was ready to give up on him.